Good evening, everybody. My name is Nkechi Okekeru, and I'm the High Streets Recovery Lead. So I cover New Malden and the South. I'm quite new to the council myself. This is week 4 for me, but I'm based in the Regeneration Department. And the emphasis on my team is on projects and strategies that boost our town centres and really ensure they're great places to live and work and spend leisure time, particularly as we come out of the pandemic. So, for example, some of you are already familiar with the work over the past year to deliver the new public square and pocket park at Cox Crescent. And this is going to provide new open space for events and gathering and add much needed green space and hopefully improve biodiversity in the area. And the emphasis on all our projects has been on co-design. So we're really trying to work collaboratively with the local community to shape our places and spaces. And that's why it's really great that some of you have been able to take the time out of your evening today to come here and input on the design of the pocket space in front of the Environment Centre and the Fountain Roundabout. So this is a key gateway into New Malden and the borough as a whole. And we're really keen to hear from you about how we can make this a great space. And so you may have particular views on accessibility, different uses for different ages, and generally the look and feel of the place. And so I'd encourage you to share this with us so we can come up with the best design to meet the needs of New Malden. And on that note, I'll hand over to Davies White, who'll guide us through the remainder of this session.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. In a moment, we will share our screen and give you a short presentation, which will lead to a conversation, a debate. We're keen to hear from you guys, and just to say that this is the start of the process, so this isn't a one-off tonight. Over the next couple of months, you'll be able to contribute to this stage of the project. So quickly, before I share the screen, yes, my name's, you can see there, it's Adam White. I'm a director at Davies White Landscape Architects, which is based in Kingston. For 20 years, I've lived in Kingston, and my business partner's here, Andre Davies, who's lived in Richmond for 30 years. And our practice is based on Portland Road in Kingston upon Thames. And until very recently, I was the president of the Landscape Institute, which is the professional body in the UK for all landscape architects. Many people have heard of RIBA, the RIBA, the Architects Association. It's the same as that for landscape architects. They've got 50,000, we've got 8,000. But I believe, and Andre and I believe, that landscape architects are a huge part of the solution. You've seen COP26 in the news, no doubt, and I believe that the landscape profession is the superhero that can help put things into action. And this project is exactly that. There's all that talk at the political end of the scale, but it's practical action that will count. So thank you so much for joining us this evening and joining us on the journey with this project. So I'm now going to share my screen, and really should be a seasoned pro at Zoom and sharing, but if not, please bear with us. You're all on mute, which is wonderful because we won't get any background noise. I'm not, obviously. I do have my Cocker Spaniel here, so if she does start barking, I'll try and manage the situation as best I can. Now, can somebody, Andre, maybe give me a wave to say my screen's there? You can see it, beautiful. Yeah. Okay, I'm just rejigging this side of it. So there you go. There's Davies White, and there's Mac, myself, Ara, and Andre. And I'll just hand over to Andre because she's not said a word yet, but I am saving Andre's voice because she's got a bit of a tickly cough. But
yes, sure thank you, thank you, Adam. Yeah, I'm Andre. I'm the other director of Davies White. I'm also a chartered landscape architect, public space designer, and horticulturalist. And I have got a bit of a throat at the moment, so I'm sounding a bit husky. And I've got 2 very large glasses of water and a packet of Strepsils lined up. So fingers crossed.
Good work. So as landscape architects, a lot of people get confused, and my mum's known me all my life and she still gets confused and thinks I'm a garden designer. And we do confuse sometimes because Andre and I have designed 3 gardens at Hampton Court and Chelsea, most recently with the Duchess of Cambridge, the Back to Nature garden in 2019. But our day job is we only design public spaces. We don't do private gardens. And the reason is we love creating spaces where we really don't know who the end user is going to be. You know, not everybody is lucky enough to have a garden in our borough, and any green space can prove to be that garden to them. And throughout the pandemic, we all realised how important open spaces are to us, our local pocket parks. So this is a great opportunity to build upon that. So like I say, from the shores of Loch Lomond down to the coast of Southampton, Andre and I have designed, engaged and project managed the creation of spaces over the past 30 years. I know it's hard to believe, but that's how long we've been landscape architects. As I say, all over the country, we've just completed a project in Northern Ireland, but closer to home, over the past year, we've been working with Kingston Council and with Kingston First in the town centre. I'm just going to show you very quickly those projects because it'll just show you the process that this one's going to follow, and you'll see where you'll be able to contribute, and then we'll get onto the conversation. So those two spaces are Eagle Brewery Wharf on the river next to the Ram and Woodies, and Memorial Gardens, which is just off the square where Joe Malone's is Ice Smash. I'm sure many of you know it. And we've been engaging throughout the pandemic with those stakeholders from those two spaces, and we had to embrace all the different technologies, Teams, Zoom, you name it. We ran a session on it, and you can see there Andre's got a board of post-it notes, and she'll be doing exactly the same today. Hidden behind her virtual backdrop is a board just like that will be capturing commentary. And as the restrictions have lifted, we've been able to do a little bit more in person, use our legs in real life, as they called, IRL. And we work very closely with Kingston Forest and Nature School, with Kath. She's helped us on so many projects now, and it's brilliant because when we run an event in a space, it means families come down, and it's our way of engaging with parents and the children as well. And also Nick, there's Nick from Wild Heart, who runs medieval woodland workshops, and another great way of getting families down to have a conversation with us rather than just us guys being there with a clipboard. Now, some of you may have seen this approach. Now, we're kind of showing you a little bit behind the scenes. This is what we're going to tease out of you, and throughout this process is finding out what the strengths and the opportunities. So trying to go for the positives first, strengths and the opportunities, and of course the weakness and threats for each space before we even really start going into detailed design. And also looking at establishing design principles. So we do this on every project, and we get your community themes and we share them. So we'll do the same with you on this. So these are a couple of slides that not everybody will have seen yet. I don't think they've even gone public, so it's a bit of a treat for you. The top image there is the analytical drawing, which we're going to show you something similar for these two spaces. Then it's our early concept idea. And then the final two there are the more detailed, completed visualizations of what the space could look like. So they're still at concept stage. And Andre and I have only been employed for this part of the project is to develop this stage, the concept idea, not the detailed design. And then this is the developed concept. It's still an outline, it's not detailed, but it's about getting measurements right and making sure that it actually fits in the space. So we'll be doing something very similar for this project. And then this is the memorial garden. So these were the designs as they developed through to the completed concept sketches. And again, the outline for the space, which is rationalizing the movement through it, respecting it as a memorial garden. And those design principles you can see on the right there, really, really important. Now we will PDF this whole presentation up and share it with you if you want to take it away and digest it and have a look at it, or share it with your family, friends, colleagues. But let's move on to the spaces. Let's move on to this project, because that's what we're all here for. So these are the two images that just capture the space. I'm sure you're all aware of them. We've got a deck of images if you need to be familiarized. We're very lucky that in the studio behind us is Prima Vista Films, who is an independent documentary filmmaker in Kingston. And Andy will work with us on this project to film as much of the process as possible, which is wonderful. So as you can see, this is a slide from some of the work that's already taken place. There's been quite a lot of work already taking place, and I'm sure many of you have contributed to it. Andre and I have been going through it and having a look at it, and it does help to inform those design principles and help move the project along to ensure that whatever we all come up with together fits in with the bigger picture for the neighbourhood. Specifically, we've picked out the Roundabout. It says Cox Crescent below it, but that's a little bit of a different area, isn't it? That's area 5, but we're looking at area 4 there. So we've been looking at all that different information and then visiting the site. And here you can see Andre with a lady that's walking her dog there. I'll be totally honest, that's my mum and that's my dog. But I was going to pretend that was a local resident. It's not. It's my mum visiting from Warrington. And you can see this space. And again, I'm just putting these up. We can come back to these when we get to the conversation if we need to pick a point out. So when you're looking at these, if you want to make a point, go, actually, Adam, could you go back to that one that's got the image of the environment centre on? And we'll go back to it. But it just gives an idea how important these little segments of green are so important. I know that's something that Elliot will want to mention around every green space is important for biodiversity, and that includes roundabouts, which is a new one for us. We've designed lots of spaces over 30 years, but we've never done a roundabout. So we'll be really interested on what your thoughts are for it. And the one thing it does have is approaches from lots of different angles. You can't hide away from it. It's got heritage related to it. And it has also a heck of a lot of cars driving around it. So sight lines are going to be something incredibly important. So from this is the bit that's really useful. And I'm going to hand over to Andre in a moment now, because these are 12 design principles that, based on the conversations, we've had 4 or 5 meetings with some of the key stakeholders from the local authority and looking at all the different reports done, and based on our experience of public realm spaces. Now, we're not saying this is cast in stone. So when you're looking at these are kind of the headlines that we think we need to really consider when we're designing. But if you think there's a 13, 14, 15, if you think some of these aren't relevant, please do let us know. As my dad used to say, we've got 2 of these and 1 of these, and all I'm using is this at the moment. So I am going to shut up and hand over to Andre, who's going to chair the debate around how we might develop the design.
Thank you, Adam. So I'm hoping my voice holds out, and bear with me. Yeah, so as Adam says, when we're looking at public space, in fact, there's been a lot of analysis done by Kingston Council, so that's really informed some of these themes. But Adam and I have been working on public space design for about 30 years. So we quite often find there are common conversations and themes that come out of our engagement with the stakeholders and you as the community. And there are always 2 ways of approaching this first kind of conversation with you. Sometimes we come to the table with an entirely blank canvas and talk to you about your ambitions and your aspirations for some of these very small spaces around New Malden. But sometimes we find it is quite useful to have a starting point so that you've got something to think about and something to comment on. And as there has been a reasonably good amount of analysis done so far, what we've done tonight is brought some of our initial thoughts together to give you an idea of what could be achieved with these 2 spaces. And, that will give you something to respond to see if we are pulling out the right themes and if we have started to develop ideas that seem appropriate and relevant to you. I think what Adam said is very important to reiterate, that at this stage, that's all it is. It's our initial thoughts on a piece of paper. We as public space designers, we think very visually. And so this is our sort of thinking on paper to give you some idea of where we think this project could go if it seems to align with the ideas and ambitions you have. So if you go on to the next slide, Adam, we'll see that, so we start to think about, there are things about this space that strike us, are very obvious. Its location next to the busy roads and the impact that has on the spaces adjacent to the roads in terms of air quality, noise, and how pleasant a space these places are because of their location next to the road. So that leads us on to thinking about what is a good solution, how could those spaces be improved. that starts to address some of the things around air quality. And also, public space, these small spaces are so valuable in town centres. We really feel, they want to work hard for you as a community. They want to work hard for nature. We know how important biodiversity is. They need to say something about people's arrival in New Malden. I think, as Adam said, the approach to the roundabout comes from many directions, and it gives you this kind of initial sense of arrival into New Malden. So, really want something to say, welcome to New Malden, and how do we do that, and how do we make this space? What facilities and what opportunities have we got to do that? There is the opportunity to add this little bit of playfulness to this space, but again, we need to think carefully about how to balance that with its location in this corner. So I think one of the ways we have thought about responding to all of these things, if you go on to the next slide, Adam, I think there's a couple of coloured illustrations of the sort of approach we could use. And that's possibly to think about these spaces as almost like a kind of tiny forest park. So really developing the planting materials, adding more trees, adding a sense of softness to balance out what is quite a built up and noisy environment at the moment. So using more plant material will obviously help to balance that out. The other thing developing a sort of planted solution does is filter the air quality. So it does give the opportunity for people to linger in that space, and their tree planting would protect you from noise and improve the air quality. The roundabout itself, there are opportunities, of course, to make that really feel like an arrival point to New Malden. It's got the fountain on it at the moment, so we're interested to hear what you feel about the future of that fountain. And you could introduce a ring of blossoming trees, perhaps on the roundabout, which is what this image shows, so that it marks spring every year, and there's a kind of real, planting as a kind of event, and it could be covered in bulbs, so that another time of year there's a different kind of planting sort of sensation for people to enjoy. So I think what we're going to do is leave that image up and open the floor and ask you if you've got any initial thoughts about what we have spoken about so far, or if there's anything else that you would like to raise in this context now that you feel will be a useful steer for us going forward and developing the design.